Warning, the maneuvers shown in this video are dangerous and can cause serious injury or death. Always wear a DOT-approved motorcycle helmet, proper protective clothing, and boots on every ride. Any attempt at the maneuvers shown in Swanky Cat videos are done at your own risk. The Swanky Cat channel cannot be held liable for any losses, fines, injuries, or deaths that may occur.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Ben, and today I'm not only going to convince you that everyone who rides a dual sport motorcycle should know how to do a wheelie, I'm going to show you how to do it on every single bike that I own, even the little 12 horsepower TW200. Now, if you guys clicked on this assuming that I'm about to tell you how to ride mile-long wheelies down your hometown's main drag, I am sorry to tell you that that is not what this video is about. This is about a practical dual sport wheelie, and while a wheelie in general may seem like something that is really only done to impress the ladies or to impress your riding buddies, and they are definitely impressive. It takes an immense amount of practice and skill and balance to keep a bike upright but not drop it on the front tire, or even worse, drop it on yourself. But what I'm more interested in, and what I think every one of you who rides a dual sport motorcycle should learn and should be able to do, is essentially pick up the front wheel to do a couple different things. Mainly get over obstacles. And I'm not talking giant logs or huge rocks or anything like that. I'm saying small things in the trail that you don't really want to hit with your front tire because it could get kicked up onto you, the bike. I've sent quite a few sticks up through my forks, almost blowing off fenders and brake lines. It's definitely something that you don't really realize is an issue until you've already ran something over, and then it's popping up and trying to knock your boot off of your pegs. Even that in and of itself, I think, is worth learning this skill for. But an even more important one that I think a lot of people miss is the fact that you can really reduce your cleaning and maintenance schedule by keeping the front tire up when you go through puddles. Not only will that help keep your bikes clean, but it may also very well keep you from sending your bike completely into the drink and taking on water into your airbox. And that's definitely a situation that I think we can all agree is well worth avoiding. Now, right now, when my bikes are here in the garage at rest, they are contacting the ground in 3 points: the front tire, the rear tire, and the kickstand. And if you guys saw the video where I weighed my Gen 3 KLR 650, you can see that the weight of the bike is sort of distributed among those 3 points. 173.5, 191, 116.2. But if you were to pick the front of the bike up, you're putting all of the bike's weight and all of your weight on that rear tire, which of course means, you guessed it, much more traction for the back. It's also much harder to sort of get knocked off of course when you're really just riding on that back wheel. If you hit an obstacle with the front tire, it can easily send the bike side to side. I'm sure we've all seen the videos of the guys on their giant 1200 GSs dropping them in the water, sucking dirty river water into that airbox and into that engine. And then everybody spends hours and hours taking the bike apart to try to drain all the water back out, which of course does certainly beat the other option, which is hydrolocking the engine, which is a situation where you end up with water inside of the combustion chamber, and while air and fuel can be compressed, water does not compress. So then something else has to, which is usually your rod and crank. So as silly as it sounds, wheelies are important.
So I would hope that this goes without saying, but of course you want to find a nice secluded trail where there's not going to be any traffic or any other people, because what you're practicing and learning is, well, fairly dangerous. That being said, of course, as well, you want to make sure that you have proper gear and protection at all the contact points. If you were to go down, of course, wear a helmet always. Should really always be decked out in gear that's going to protect you, because you never know when you're going to go down. I've been hit just cruising along on a regular old paved road and never thought that that would be the day that I got hit by a minivan, but it was. So always wear your gear. Definitely wear something that's going to protect your feet and ankles, not just tennis shoes. Even steel-toe boots really aren't enough. And with all that, we are ready to gear down into first gear. The best way to kind of start out, I think, is up on the pegs rather than the seat. That way you can kind of move your body a little bit if you need to. You, of course, always want to be covering that rear brake. That's the only thing that's going to get you back down to the ground. The clutch, the front brake, the gas, all of that stuff can be used to sort of control a wheelie, but the only thing that's going to bring you back down is that brake. So practice a bit of rear brake to begin with, figure out how much pressure you need to get it to do what you want it to. And then once you've got that down, get up on the pegs, running just a couple miles an hour here on the TW. Depending on how your bike is geared, that might change. What I'm going to do is be on the gas a little bit, lean to the front, let off the throttle, and then as I pull my body back, I'm going to get on the gas and pull up and back on the bars. Ready? One more time. Forward, off the gas, back, on the gas. And I'm sort of letting the bike come up to me, and I'm kind of keeping my body in place. The further you lean back, the better of a chance you've got that tire to come up a little bit higher. All depends what you're looking for. If you just need to get over an obstacle, doesn't take much. If you want to get a little bit higher than that to ride through a puddle, you can get on it a little more. You of course can use the clutch, even on a bike like this that only probably has 8 to 10 horsepower at the rear wheel. But honestly, I think the most useful wheelie is going to be one that's all throttle, because you don't have to mess with the clutch or anything. I mean, you can be just tooling down the trail, minding your own business, all of a sudden realizing there's an obstacle, cover that brake, and go. You can kind of see that I modulate with my body a little bit, and I'm by no means an expert, and I'm certainly not trying to teach you guys how to ride mile-long wheelies. If you're going to do that sort of thing, there are a few things you need to consider to make sure that the fluids aren't ending up in a spot that they're not supposed to be. So if you're looking for that type of wheelie, you're probably in the wrong spot. But if you're a dual sport rider, like I said, this is a very important thing, and obviously can be done on just about any motorcycle. Let's head to some bigger bikes and see how it's done on those. So now we're on my 2018 DR650. This bike puts out about 35 horsepower, so a definite increase from the TW. This one is also geared a bit higher, so I think we're running right around probably 10, 11 miles an hour. And with a little bit bigger of a bike, with a little bit higher of a speed, obviously things get a little bit more dangerous. But honestly, the TW is actually the only bike that I've ever looped, and I can tell you from personal experience, it can happen in just an instant, less than an instant. You think you've got it balanced, you think you're not too high, and then all of a sudden you are. So always, always, always cover that rear brake. And really, you want to start slow. Your first couple wheelies should be just an inch or so off the ground. For a practical wheelie, you don't need to do a 12 o'clock, and that's honestly something that is really just done for show. This is a practical wheelie, so start slow, learn slow, and hopefully you can put off looping the bike to a later point in time. It probably will happen though. Just make sure you cover that rear brake and make sure you've got your safety equipment on. So on the DR, it might take a little bit more effort, but again, I'm going to do essentially the same thing on the gas a little bit, cover that rear brake, cover that rear brake, cover that rear brake. About middle of the bike, lean forward, drop the gas, lean back, and pull up. And as you can see, this one's a little bit more difficult. Got to go a little bit quicker. It'll do it, but definitely takes a little bit more practice. And again, as you saw me doing there, you want to start slow. Don't go over right away. Now, don't go over at all if you can avoid it. But the other thing that really helps is getting traction onto that rear. So when you're throwing your weight to the back, not only are you lightening the load on the front, kind of bouncing on the shocks, but you're also pressing into that back shock, allowing the bike to kind of come up a little faster. So it definitely takes a bit more effort on a bigger bike like this, but it can be done, and doing mods to a bike like straighter handlebars like I've got on here with a little bit of rise can definitely make a big difference. Also, gearing down a tooth with the sprocket to give you a little bit more control and power is certainly helpful as well. So now we're on the 2023 Honda XR650L. Obviously, this bike is a little bit further along in its conversion to a sort of ADV dual sport something that can tackle everything from highway to single track, and that's exactly what I'll be doing with the DR650. So if you guys want to see those videos that I've already got done and the future build progress, I'd love to have you subscribed and watch it along. This bike does not have too much done as far as performance, but it does have a slightly smaller sprocket in the front, so it's a 14 tooth instead of a 15 tooth. The other thing that can kind of help is if you go up a slight hill, the kind of center of gravity when the bike comes up is transferred further back a little bit easier, but I don't think we'll need it on this bike. We'll be doing essentially the same thing though. Lean forward, drop the gas, pull back, and pull back on the throttle. Yeah, definitely gets up and goes much easier. Definitely want to be covering that rear brake, cover that rear brake, cover that rear brake. As you're practicing, if you're feeling like something is just not working right, it is probably because you're doing something wrong, and that's not because you can't do wheelies, you just haven't quite figured it out yet. It's all about the timing with the release of the pressure and weight on the front, transferring it to the back, and hitting the throttle. If you get all of those timed right, you can do it on any bike. You just have to make sure you cover the rear brake. And I think on this one, I don't even really drop the gas. I think I just kind of transfer my weight from the front to the back and pull up as I go. So the last two bikes had about 35 horsepower at the rear wheel and weighed around 350 to 370 pounds. Before those bikes, though, I had a Gen 3 KLR 650, which had, again, about 35 horsepower at the rear wheel, but instead weighed over 460 pounds without all of the crash protection that I had on it, and I still use the same exact method to wheelie it. This bike, however, my 2016 Husqvarna 701 Enduro, weighs about 350 pounds, but has 60 horsepower. So on a bike like this, the main goal is really just making sure that you have enough traction at the rear. Otherwise, when you go to pull up and hit the gas, it's basically just going to spin out on you. So really, you're throwing your weight back more to get that tire dug in and to get that power down to the dirt and into the dirt rather than just spinning it up. But essentially, it is the same process, more or less. Woo! You definitely got to watch it because that rear end will walk out on you. What are we doing? Somewhere around 10 miles an hour. Of course, always making sure we're covering that rear brake. So there you go. I think we probably clearly proved there, even sort of on accident, that it actually can almost be easier to do wheelies on a little tiny bike with under 10 horsepower at the rear wheel like the TW200. Obviously gearing and that sort of thing could definitely play into that, but even on a big bike like the 701 or the XR or the DR, it certainly can be done. Of course, like I said to begin with, make sure you cover the rear brake, but also make sure you start slow. Don't go over backwards your first couple times and scare yourself. But of course, dress like you are going to and really be prepared to go over backwards. If you want to be somebody that can do wheelies more than just a couple inches off the ground, it's probably going to happen. And even if you are only pulling the front end up a little bit as you're learning, especially on gravel, it definitely is dangerous, which is why I always dress like I'm gonna crash every time I go out and ride, because I have crashed a couple times and I have been ran into. So please be careful out here. Please make sure you're wearing your gear. Please make sure that if you're gonna try wheelies, you're doing it in a safe way and you start slow and you understand what you need to do and what you need to not do. And what do you need to do? Cover that rear brake. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care, stay safe, stay swanky. Get out and enjoy this beautiful world any chance you get. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, I'd love to have you guys subscribe and watch it along. So hit that subscribe button. If you can't get out right now, here's some more videos to check out. In the meantime, we'll catch you guys on the next one.